Hello, everyone. Today we're gonna read from Bedtime Stories, and the story today is Chatterer the Red Squirrel Learns a Lesson. Chatterer the Red Squirrel had been scolding because there was no excitement. He had even tried to make some excitement by waking Bobby Coon and making him so angry that Bobby had threatened to eat him alive. It had been great fun to dance around and call Bobby names and make fun of him. Oh, yes, it had been great fun. You see, he knew all the time that Bobby couldn't catch him if he should try. But now things were different. Chatterer had all the excitement that he wanted. Indeed, he had more than he wanted. The truth is, Chatterer was running for his life, and he knew it. It was Shadow the Weasel from whom Chatterer is running, and Shadow is so slim that he can slip in and out of places that even Chatterer cannot get through. Oh dear, he sobbed as he ran out on the branch of a tree and leaped across to the next tree. I wish I had minded my own business. I wish I had kept my tongue still. Shadow the Weasel wouldn't have known where I was if he hadn't heard my voice. Oh dear me. What can I do? Suddenly, Chatterer saw a big brown bunch near the top of a tall chestnut tree, and he headed for that tree as fast as ever he could go. What was that big brown bunch? Why, it was Redtail the Hawk, who was dozing there with his head drawn down between his shoulders, dreaming. Now, old Redtail is one of Chatterer's deadliest enemies. He is quite as fond of Red Squirrel as is Shadow the Weasel, though he doesn't often try to catch one because there are other things to eat much easier to get. Chatterer had had more than one narrow escape from old Redtail and was very much afraid of him. Yet here he was running up the very tree in which Redtail was sitting. You see, a very daring idea had come into his head. He had seen at once that Redtail was dozing and hadn't seen him at all. He knew that Redtail would just as soon have Shadow the Weasel for dinner as himself, and a daring plan popped into his head. I may as well be caught by Redtail as Shadow, he thought as he ran up the tree. But if my plan works out right, I won't be caught by either. Anyway, it is my very last chance. Up the tree he scrambled, and after him went Shadow the Weasel. Shadow had been so intent on catching Chatterer that he had not noticed old Redtail, which was just as Chatterer had hoped. Up he scrambled, straight past old Redtail, but as he passed, he pulled one of Redtail's long tail feathers, and then ran on to the top of the tree, and with the last bit of strength he had left, leaped to a neighboring spruce tree where, hidden by the thick branches, he stopped to rest and see what would happen. Of course, when he felt his tail pulled, old Redtail was wide awake in a flash, and of course he looked down to see who had dared to pull his tail. There, just below him, was Shadow the Weasel, who had just that minute discovered who was sitting there. Old Redtail hissed sharply, and the feathers on the top of his head stood up in a way they do when he is angry. And he was angry, very angry. Shadow the Weasel stopped short. Then, like a flash, he dodged around to the other side of the tree. He had no thought of Chatterer now. Things were changed all in an instant, quite changed. Instead of the hunter, he was now the hunted. Old Redtail circled in the air just overhead, and every time he caught sight of Shadow, he swooped at him with great cruel claws spread to clutch him. Shadow dodged around the trunk of the tree. He was more angry than frightened, for his sharp eyes had spied a little hollow in a branch of the chestnut tree, and he knew that once inside of that, he would have nothing to fear. But he was angry clear through to think that he should be cheated out of that dinner he had been so sure of only a few minutes before, so he screeched angrily at old Redtail, and then, watching his chance, scampered out to the hollow and whisked inside, just in the nick of time. Chatterer, watching from the spruce tree, gave a great sigh of relief. He saw Redtail the Hawk post himself on the top of a tall tree, where he could keep watch of that hollow in which Shadow had disappeared, and he knew that it would be a long time before Shadow would dare poke even his nose outside. Then, as soon as he was rested, Chatterer stole softly, oh so softly, away through the tree tops, until he was sure that Redtail could not see him. Then he hurried. He wanted to get just as far away from Shadow the Weasel as he could, but Chatterer had learned his lesson. Hope you enjoyed that story. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe, and I hope you have a wonderful day.